Hello, I am Tara, the author of the Dining on a Dime cookbook, along with my mom, Jill, also the author of the Dining on a Dime cookbook, where you can eat better, spend less. We have real food for real families, no crazy stuff here. Now, if this video is up, it means that we lived past our last video about margarine. Means I didn't get shot dead in my sleep. So today we're going to talk about a practical aspect of cooking with butter versus margarine versus shortening. Now, Dining on a Dime cookbook uses all three of those for different recipes, okay? But every time I use margarine or shortening, we get this question, can I use real butter instead? And the answer is no. And the answer is yes. So we're going to tell you when you can use butter and when you can't use butter and how it will affect your food, okay? All right, now, first of all, taste. Both Mom and I completely agree butter does taste better than margarine or shortening, right?
It does, yeah.
We both like it. We like the taste, but
I will go without anything on my food, like my toast or my potatoes. I won't put anything on if I can't have butter on my mashed potatoes or my toast. You know, I'll eat them without instead of putting margarine on because I don't like the taste of margarine for that.
But you still have margarine in your house for different things.
The same amount of margarine as I do butter, yes.
Okay, so here's the difference between margarine, shortening, and butter. Now, when you're cooking with butter, yes, it has a better flavor. But butter burns in your cooking. Butter also creates a denser product. So in your cakes and your pie crusts and those kind of things, it's not going to be as fluffy. It's not going to be...
If your cookies keep coming out of the oven and they're melted, kind of funny looking melted flattish on the cookie sheet all the time, you're probably using butter.
Yep.
The margarine makes them look like more rounded cake, soft cake-like is the difference.
Shortening also makes things more cake-like. Now,
you intermix margarine and shortening in baking. Usually.
Now, a lot of times you will find in cakes and pies, mostly pastry type things, you will find shortening used most of the time, especially in our book. And I will tell you, our pie crust, every person who uses our pie crust is like, oh, that is the best pie crust ever. And it is. I guarantee you, this is the best pie crust in the world. This is Mom's recipe for pie crust. It's the best pie crust in the world.
You know how you can tell if you've got a good pie crust is when you have a bunch of people over and all the crust is eaten.
Yep.
So many of you fix pies and everything's scraped out of the center and then there's a pie crust to be thrown away. If you're not having your pie crust thrown away, you know you've got a good pie crust.
And I'll tell you, I hate pie crust. I really do. I hate pie crust, but I will
not eat pies. I make the best pies in the world. I'm patting myself on the back. My kids hate them.
But I like your pie crust. I do like your pie crust. So page 317 right here, if you guys want the perfect pie crust, but it uses shortening. And it uses shortening because it makes a fluffier, lighter, flakier pie crust. So is a general rule when you're making cakes and pies, if it calls for shortening versus butter, yes, you can use butter, but it is not going to turn out as well. Now, also, if you like the butter flavor, you can get things like butter flavor shortening, or you can get butter extract and put a half a teaspoon of butter extract in there to give it a butter flavor. It's not quite the same, but you know, it's a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Butter for things like I will put butter in my stew. I will put in my green chili. Things you want to brown. So like if you're cooking a roast, you would use butter to sear it on the outside and get that.
Careful. You got to watch it carefully.
You have to.
Butter burns just like that.
Yeah, but you would use it for something like that where you want it to get brown. Versus something where you don't want it to get brown, like a pie.
And our pecan pie recipe, the filling, You're supposed to use butter, and it needs to have the butter brown. See, you use the butter in there to brown it because it gives it a different flavor when you actually kind of burn the butter a little bit. So things like that.
Yeah, and so shortening, people ask all the time in cakes and that kind of thing, well, can I use butter instead of shortening? Yes, you can, but your cake is not going to be as fluffy and light. It's going to be harder and denser. And I'm going to do a video showing a shortening cake versus a butter cake, probably after we get back from our trip. I'm not going to have time to do it now, but showing the difference in how fluffy it is. And really, you know, this will be your butter cake and this will be your shortening cake. You know,
you should see cookies when you bake them with the different ones too. It's very obvious.
Yeah.
And one thing, I don't mean to, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say on the cookies, if they're flat, like you were saying, and they never come out, if you like cake cookies, but you're using butter, they're going to be flat. You have to use shortening versus butter or margarine. You can use margarine for things too.
Cookie. People have started asking me on the website, I forgot to mention to you, on lard. Can I use lard?
Yeah.
You can substitute lard for shortening. When it calls for shortening, you can a lot of times substitute lard. As a matter of fact, originally on my pie crust, I always used lard. But it got to be really expensive, and then it got hard to find. So I had to go over to the shortening and start using shortening. So
now it's coming back in vogue again.
Yeah, so especially on the pie crust, you can use the lard. And I actually kind of prefer the lard when I have it. So
I have to say something funny. So we're working on a sequel to Dining on a Dime, 20 years after Dining on a Dime came out. But it's really hilarious, actually. In the 20 years since we wrote this one and writing the new one, watching all the food trends change. Because it was butter versus margarine when we wrote Dining on a Dime. But then now it has turned into coconut oil and lard, and everybody's using it's funny watching the rotation.
In another video where I said, I think it was the last one where I said, I've watched all these things, you know, just go back and forth and back and forth. And it's just like.
Well, what's hilarious is when we wrote this, is coconut oil was outlawed in movie theaters because it was so unhealthy.
And restaurants, I went to my favorite Mexican restaurant. I remember when they told me, they said, we cannot use coconut oil anymore to cook our tacos. And I was horrified because I thought, oh, it's not going to be the same. It's not, and everything. No, it's outlawed. We can't use. And so now everybody's pouring gallons and they're putting it on their body and their hair and they're brushing their teeth and drinking it. And it's just like, oh my goodness.
You guys, this is absurd.
It's extreme. I mean, and it's usually an extreme. You know, you're just not using a little bit of coconut oil now. You're just taking baths in coconut oil.
I know we've kind of gotten off topic, but really, this has gotten absurd.
Yeah.
It really has gotten absurd.
Yeah.
And people need to stop worrying about it. I know people that I will not allow margarine to touch my lips. Oh my word.
Thinking about that before we started doing these videos, I thought, I am so thankful I can go in the kitchen now when this is over and sit down and eat, and I'm just eating food and putting it in my mouth. I'm not thinking, reading the ingredients before I eat it. You know, I'm not thinking, okay, should I don't even give it a second thought. I really don't. And I feel sorry for people that have to worry about this. I've got enough stuff to worry about without worrying about that, you know.
So anyway, guys, if you want your food to turn out, if the recipe calls for shortening, use the shortening. You're going to get literally a teaspoon. We're talking this big in a serving of cake.
Can I say, okay, I know you wanted to cut this off real sorry, but you just mentioned that. I had somebody say, you used half a cup of sugar in that cake or whatever. What they didn't realize, you got 24 pieces. And I forget what it was. Somehow I calculated it up where you would get 1 teaspoon of sugar in that piece of cake, and they made it sound like each piece was going to have a half a cup of sugar in it.
I know.
And you know, you don't get that much.
Stop eating the 6 pieces of cake.
Exactly. That's where the problem is.
I mean, and I'm right there. I know Mom's not overweight. I'm overweight, and I admit I eat a piece of cake and I'm just like, oh, that's so good. So then I'll eat 6 pieces of cake.
I ate a half a gallon of ice cream in 2 days. Invested here on nationwide, worldwide.
But seriously, guys, stop worrying about it.
Yeah.
And relax and enjoy your food and eat one piece of cake for dessert every single day instead of being so obsessed about it and worrying about it. So, anyway, didn't mean to get on that little get it together, people. But, you know, really, this is one thing that just drives Mom and I bonkers because people are completely missing the entire point. Yeah. And they hear nothing else because we'll say something about margarine or shortening, and they completely tune out.
They probably missed the whole rest of this video the minute we mentioned that margarine's not bad, and they didn't listen to anything else. And see, people read that, and they don't finish reading the rest of stuff, and they don't get the full picture.
So anyway, save yourself some money, use the margarine and shortening, and make some good food. And, well, and here's another thing. Okay, one more thing. Sorry, gotta go. But here's the thing. These same people will holler about that, but they think nothing of going and when there's free donuts at church, snurfing down 2 or 3 donuts.
I know.
That stuff is made with shortening, guys. That's why they're so fluffy and yummy, because it's made with shortening. Mm-hmm. So, you know, anyway. All right, please check out our Dining on a Dime cookbook if you're still speaking to us. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Yes, we're hiding the comments. Bye-bye, guys.